All right, good afternoon, everybody. Members of the committee, members of the public, this is a special meeting of the Planning and Land Use Committee. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll to get us officially started.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield present.
Hutt.
Aye.
Nazarian. Present. Lee. Present. That's 4 members and a quorum.
Okay. We're going to start, as we do in terms of public comment, we're going to take public comment from people who've signed up for 3 or more items. And then we'll go through the items. We'll take up the consent items. We'll take up the other items. We don't have a lot on the agenda today, but all obviously important items. We have 4 items on the agenda. And my intention was to do item 1 on consent and to discuss the other 3. So with that, if you could read the rules about public comment into the record.
Yes, sir. Members of the public wishing to speak on one agenda item only shall have an opportunity to speak for 1 minute. Members of the public wishing to speak on more than one item shall state that and shall be allowed to speak for a total of 2 minutes. Failure to submit public comment in a timely manner before the comment period for the item ends results in forfeiture of the opportunity to participate in public comment for the item. As stated by the chair, general public comment will not be taken at the special meeting. Madam City Attorney, please provide additional guidance on public comment.
When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on an agenda item, you will get 1 brief warning from the city attorney. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you stray off topic, you will forfeit the rest of your time and we will move on to the next speaker. We will inform you when your time is up.
Okay, so let's get started. For if anyone is here to speak on a particular item, we will get to that item when we get to the item. But for those folks who are here to speak to all the items, or 3 or more items, why don't we come on up, line up on the side, and let's get that out of the way.
Good morning, Palestinian President. Let's start with item number 1. Item number 1 is about the demolition of a building. It's really concerned that this building that house a lot of Israeli homeless person. They are the backbone of our Los Angeles community. But right now we are trying to get rid of the building and then doing something new. But again, where do you put all of the homeless person? Now let's move on to item number 2. Item number 2 is about a proposed affordable housing streamlining ordinance. Our Palestinian council member Blomandingo has already talked about the same process over and over again. But right now, can you give us some update that what kind of streamlining ordinance that you have done for any homeless services? Now let's move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is about the Olympic, Paralympic zoning exception. Well, my comments is easy and simple. You cannot afford to have an Olympic. You have $800 million in deficit. You just spend $2.6 million on the expansion project on the convention center, and then right now you have billions of in debt for the next 50 years, and then right now you are having an Olympic. Mr. President Blomandingo, you really have no money right now. Now, number 4 is talk about the interim control ordinance about the recreational vehicle parks. Yes, the illegal parking of those vehicles on the street continue to damage the relationship and continue to invade the Israeli community in Los Angeles, while at the same time our Palestinian Lives Matter President Blomandingo doing nothing for our Israeli community.
Okay, lovely. Next speaker. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Herman. Go ahead.
I signed up as FBI agent, Mr. Kash Patel, because I understand that Where the fuck is ramen noodle, first of all, for the record?
Stick to the items.
I am. I'm talking about the ADU, asshole, on the homelessness. Where's fucking ramen noodle? And what about number 2, jackass, moron, impotent, fucking black mold motherfucker? Where's the Housing and Homeless Committee? Chairwoman, ramen noodle. I want to know.
It's not
Objection,
relevant.
sir.
Stick to the items.
Objection. I got the floor.
Stick to the items, sir.
Yeah, I am the new FBI. And I will tell you objection. And I will call to the order the narrative of this conversation,
Stay
sir.
to the items, sir.
I'm dealing with homelessness, a goddamn issue that's been involved in this crisis of this budget by the city of Los Angeles
Sir, this
to
is
enforce
not,
it.
this is not a homelessness committee,
All right,
and
now I go
that's
to
not one
item
of the
number
items.
3.
Stick to the items.
What the fuck? Olympics? Who fucking needs the Olympics when the goddamn city of Los Angeles is not a safe place for you to travel? Is tourism the only cash cow you got, Juju? Is that the only revenue you're depending on to fix this fucking budget and crisis? That we, the city, is under $1 billion deficit? After you asked that Newsome asshole up north for another $1 billion to match it? It don't make no fucking sense. You know, I can count 1, 2, but I don't understand you, fool. So let's go to number 4, because I'm limited to time here, because I'm a white motherfucker with a bad attitude. Yeah, California recreational vehicle parks. I could have swore there was a man up in Van Nuys that spoke about this shit. Why the fuck are we putting recreational vehicles in an area targeted by homelessness? Where the fuck is Mana Cow? Moo, moo,
Okay,
moo.
that's enough. Next speaker.
Spoke a fat song.
So let's see here, and number 3 for the Paralympic Games. They want to participate with my disability. So, of course, I agree with Blob and Blob, the tiny hat little fucker that wants to take and give construction exemptions throughout the city so that you can take and tear down any fucking shit you want without a fucking permit. So you can give the money to the Jews that are sponsoring your Olympics, because only the Jews can pay for Olympics, because nobody has any money but the Jews. And the fucking goat herder knows that, don't you? So now we have this number 1, KKK Katie Yaroslavsky wants to tear down this piece of shit that's rotting with mold. Ew, black mold. Ugh. Yes, you've been living in that mold, breathing it. If you continue to breathe and live in mold, you're gonna look like Heather Hutt when you're done, so you don't wanna look like her, so you wanna tear it down as soon as possible. Yeah, that's right. It's called Heather's disease, that's what we call it. So again, you wanna tear down this piece of shit and build another piece of shit that's a bigger piece of shit. And that's what item number 1 is. And then of course, we have number 2, what the fuck is that about? Did you pay off the building inspector? Did you pay off the council persons? And did you take it? Of course you did. And finally, have a good evening, niggas. Thank you.
Okay, that's 6 minutes. I apologize, everyone. No one here will get back in their lives, but these folks actually woke up and came with this purpose to enlighten us with that. Okay, so now we will, and Mr. Spindler, you used the N-word, and you know that you're not allowed, so you're officially removed from the meeting because of it. You violated Rule 7. You forfeited your speaking time, although you obviously did it at the end of your speaking time. So please leave. Okay, now we're going to move to item 1. If there's anyone here, members of the public who came to speak on item 1, please come forward. Seeing nobody here for item 1, public comment on item 1 is closed. That item was, I propose we do on consent. It's only one item, so seeing no objections to that, let's call the roll on item 1.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt. Nazarian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Rahman absent, four ayes, and this item is approved.
Okay. Okay, and Mr. Spindler, no more goat noises. Disrupts the meeting, and you've already been asked to leave. Okay, item 2. Let's move, we'll start with the Planning Department to present their report, and then we'll take public comment, and then we'll have a committee discussion on this. So we'll begin with planning for a brief report. And, you know, colleagues, this item, just I'll set the frame, is obviously ED1 has really done amazing work to get us housing. And it is like no other policy that we've had, it has really produced affordable housing. We want to codify it because we've talked in this council about finally ending the emergency order, but the only way we can do that without killing the goose that lays the golden egg is to codify ED1. So we're here to do that, but there's also been some discussion about do we make some tweaks to it before we leave. Before we move it forward, we want to make sure we do that in a way that that doesn't kill the goose that lays the golden egg, but potentially adds some additional labor protections. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Matt Glesney with the department's Housing Policy Unit. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I've got about a 5-minute overview of ED1 and this codification ordinance. We'll start with a brief overview and then get into the ordinance and then go through our labor report that was requested by this committee. As the chair said, ED1 has been perhaps the most successful zoning reform that I'm aware of in the country to produce affordable housing. It's produced amazing results by creating a fast ministerial approval process that has been paired with some new state law incentives and really cut through the uncertainty and red tape that often derails housing projects. The results have been remarkable. About 41,000 units proposed in less than 3 years, with about 31,000 already approved. Just this year, we've been told that the majority of units actually breaking ground are ED1 projects. About 57 projects have begun construction. This shows that when we streamline and simplify, Los Angeles can indeed deliver affordable housing at scale. However, it's important to note that applications have slowed significantly in the last year, down about 80%. The decline is likely a result of many reasons, including worsening market conditions as well as program changes that were made last year. The ordinance in front of you would do a number of things, including defining 100% affordable housing. It would create a ministerial approval process with no public hearing, CEQA review, or appeals if projects meet a set of objective standards. They would establish clear eligibility limits, including excluding single-family zones and manufacturing zones, historic sites, hazardous sites, and coastal zone. The ordinance also adds objective design rules, performance standards such as screening and street-facing entrances. It would also incorporate those revisions from last year that came after the ordinance was adopted at Planning Commission. And additionally, we've transmitted just last week a request to consider a few minor clarifying amendments intended to improve implementation, but don't really change anything of substance. Now, turning to the labor report requested by this committee, we have reviewed how labor standards are handled in a range of state and local streamlining laws identified in the council motion. Each law applies labor rules a little differently. Some rely primarily on prevailing wage, healthcare, and apprenticeship requirements, while others may mandate project labor agreements. These provisions are important for raising worker pay and standards, but they also do come with significant project feasibility impacts, including higher compensation costs, increased legal exposure and negotiation risks, as well as time and costs related to the robust monitoring and certification requirements related to documenting labor compliance. These risks and costs are likely why these programs have only been used sparingly in Los Angeles. In fact, of all the state streamlining laws that we looked at, we think there's only about 5 projects that have actually used them, most of which were publicly subsidized, which obviously compares unfavorably to the usage we described with ED1. By contrast, ED1 projects are almost always privately developed, the vast majority of them. They are 100% affordable. They are largely without public subsidies. That makes them more sensitive to added costs. We've been told that even modest increases in labor obligations could prevent these projects from penciling out and would likely, developers would seek other routes or other types of projects. The report therefore emphasizes that the choice of labor thresholds is critical. It tries to outline different considerations depending on what council would like to do. It introduces what we'll call frameworks, not really recommendations. The first two frameworks are based largely on these state laws and would apply labor standards broadly to most projects, either through a prevailing wage requirement or a project labor agreement. The final two options propose more flexible thresholds, really up to council. It would, instead of applying these to all projects, you could select a unit-based threshold or a building height threshold that would essentially exempt smaller projects. The difference between those options, again, is whether the council wanted to emphasize prevailing wage, plus healthcare and apprenticeship requirements, or project labor agreements, which would be negotiated individually with each project. The report also emphasizes what appears to be the latest in terms of how Sacramento has balanced labor provisions with housing. There's an 85-foot threshold has now, I would say, become the statewide benchmark. This was added last year through SB 423 into really the state's premier streamlining bill, SB 35, added the 85-foot threshold, and this year the two biggest housing legislation pieces that were negotiated, the AB 130, which did major CEQA reform, and Senate Bill 79, which is the transit-oriented development, both converged on 85 feet as that new balance point between protecting workers and preserving and producing affordable housing. Union trades are perhaps best equipped for high-rise construction, which includes more steel and concrete and more complex systems where higher labor standards may be more fitting. By contrast, your typical low-rise wood frame projects, which make up most of ED1 filings, are built by smaller subcontractors, likely have no experience navigating complex labor provisions. In closing, ED1 has proven that streamlined approvals work. The codification of ED1 ordinance will ensure that these benefits are maintained. The addition of labor standards has the potential of having major or minor impacts on the production of 100% affordable housing projects. Requirements that are too strict risk resulting in not only fewer 100% affordable projects, but also are unlikely to result in any additional opportunities for projects utilizing these labor standards because, as we said, most private developers will likely choose other options. Our report has identified a variety of options or frameworks depending on the goals of this council. If the intent is to minimize impacts, selecting an option that relies upon a prevailing wage, along with healthcare and apprenticeship requirements, would likely have a smaller impact compared to requiring a project labor agreements be negotiated for every project. Similarly, selecting an appropriate threshold for when labor requirements kick in could significantly mitigate the impacts. An 85-foot threshold would align with the new state laws and provide less disruption. Finally, another option the department could be asked to explore, sort of a new idea would be to have more of an incentive-based approach that would tie the provision of labor standards to some additional development rights or development standards. This is an approach we didn't really explore, but we'd be happy to if the council is interested. And we're happy to close there and happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to public comment, and then we'll have questions with discussion. So if anyone is here to speak on this item, please come forward to the left side of the chamber, house left, stage right, and we welcome your feedback. We have 1 minute per person on this item. Welcome. Just please state your name and then go right into it.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Michaela Gibson, and I'm here on behalf of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, or VICA. VICA has supported Executive Directive 1 as one of the more effective tools the city has used to move affordable housing projects forward quickly. Codifying ED1 into a permanent streamlining ordinance is critical if Los Angeles is going to meet its housing goals. However, we have some concerns with the labor provisions being proposed. Every option presented would undermine the feasibility of ED1 projects, whether through low thresholds, inflexible mandates, or additional requirements beyond the what the state already provides. Each proposal risks making projects too costly to build. The purpose of ED1 is to deliver affordable housing at scale and on an accelerated timelines. We cannot afford to weaken that tool with requirements that make housing production less realistic. FICA is opposed to the current proposal options. We ask that you go back to the table with stakeholders to craft an approach that meets both housing and workforce needs without sacrificing feasibility. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Blumenfield and fellow committee members. My name is Tommy Favai. I represent IBEW Local 11 and here on behalf of the Building Trades Council. I wanted to voice my support when it comes to incorporating strong labor workforce standards in this streamlining ordinance. We feel that all of the trades have the capacity to fill these jobs when it comes to this industry. We have contractors. I know other building trades members have contractors as well. We're ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Joseph Cohen May, Director of the Los Angeles Housing Production Institute. ED1 has been a huge success. 40% of apartment buildings that began construction this summer were ED1 projects. While I'm excited about making this program permanent, I want to encourage the committee not to impose unit count-based labor requirements. This is not because they don't want workers to be paid well, but rather because the reporting and compliance requirements are not feasible for the small, often immigrant-led contracting companies that build a majority of low and mid-rise wood-framed apartment buildings in Los Angeles. As a result, only large construction companies will be able to work on these projects, and the added cost will kill many of them. Immigrants are under attack in our community, and unit count-based labor requirements would reduce job opportunities for immigrant construction workers. According to my analysis of issued permits, a 75-unit threshold imposed would kill 49% of ED1 projects. Instead, we can have a win-win that protects existing jobs and creates new opportunities for union workers by enacting an 85-foot labor requirement and introducing new incentives. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bobby Garrity. I'm a downtown resident, and I'm here because we are in a dire housing crisis. The only way out is to build much more housing, and we especially need more affordable housing. ED1 has been a tremendous success and shows how much we can achieve just through streamlining. But costs matter. ED1 projects are income-restricted affordable, so they get less revenue, but do not receive government funding or subsidy to pay for it. So they need to be built cost-effectively to pencil. As the report noted, labor standards will prevent many such projects from penciling, so I ask that you do not require them. The best way to have more union projects built is to allow more high-rises. We need much more of those as well, including market rate, but ED1 affordable projects need to be built with minimal costs. Thank you.
Next speaker. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Robert. I live in West Los Angeles in an area that's seen a lot of exciting new development thanks to ED1. And I wanted to speak out in support of what other commenters have been saying, that I'm concerned that overly strict labor standards might drive costs too high for developers and therefore restrict the enthusiastic building that we've been seeing. I think that increasing the density and transitioning our city out of overwhelming single-family home and towards higher density multifamily units is critical, and so I hope that City Council continues to move in support of that type of development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Scott Epstein. I'm the Director of Policy and Research with Abundant Housing LA. ED1 has been a really powerful tool for producing badly needed affordable housing, and we need to protect that pipeline. Happily, we have a win-win with option 3 based on an 85-unit threshold, where we can have prevailing wage on high-rise projects, where organized labor is best prepared to build those types of projects, and we can also have the low-rise projects move forward, which will not do so under a prevailing wage. So I urge you to select that option. I'll also say our best opportunity for creating more union jobs in the construction industry is zoning reform that allows more high-rise construction, for example, on our commercial boulevards. So strongly urge you to pursue those zoning reforms to give more opportunities to our friends in organized labor. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Alicia Miles, organizer with Abundant Housing LA, and I strongly support option 3 per the Planning Department's August 18th report. I wholeheartedly support well-paying jobs and affordable housing. However, please be advised not to adopt labor provisions that would inadvertently create more roadblocks to getting new affordable housing built that we desperately need. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Larry Buroff. I support option 3, which is the most flexible labor framework with a 85 feet criterion for labor provisions. This is in alignment, as the planning staff said, with its own report last month that suggests that height-based thresholds are better than unit count thresholds, as it has the fewest impacts on affordable housing production, and it also aligns with existing state and likely future state laws such as SB 79. And I'd just like to throw out there that if option 3 doesn't work for Plum, please consider as a compromise to significantly increase the unit number trigger for labor standards. For example, twice the current 75 unit count, such as maybe 150 unit count, so that affordable housing production under ED1 continues to remain economically feasible. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. No additional speakers? Anyone here to speak on this item? Seeing none, public comment on this item is closed. So, colleagues, I mean, this is an issue that obviously affects a lot of, is affecting our affordable housing. It's related to other things. This morning, I co-presented a motion to explore the feasibility of a residential construction minimum wage, which could not only apply to 100% affordable housing projects, but also market rate and mixed income. So I think there's going to be other ways to also support good labor jobs. My thought on this, and I'll ask planning what they think, is that if we create a requirement for a PLA after 85 feet, that would be a way to ensure that we have our labor protections, but make sure that they apply to the buildings that end up being the tallest. And the reason why I picked that out is because, as you mentioned, that seems to be where the state has gone with the last couple of state bills, the budget trailer bills, AB 30, SB 35, all are sort of using that 85-foot threshold seems to be our standard of where we can, where we would best be able to apply adding PLAs without really disrupting those projects, which is the sweet spot that we're trying to find, because we want to end the emergency and we want to keep but we want to keep ED1 going. So colleagues, any other thoughts on this item or questions? Anyone? No? Okay, so then I'm going to make that recommendation that we move forward with specifically the 85-foot option, and specifically that if a project goes over 85 feet, it requires a PLA. Okay, let's, is that 3 or 4? It's neither. It's neither? Yeah.
Is it a combination?
Yeah. Let me just be clear about what we're talking about. And we're talking about 85 feet is what was referenced in number 4 and number 3, and then specifically linking that to a PLA. Okay, so the trigger on this would be height specifically. Okay, seeing, any additional comments or questions? Or Skelly, do you want to add?
Cross-checking, Kevin Keller, city planner, we're just cross-checking. There was also in a technical technical clarification letter, just making sure that's covered. Just for some of the other non-substantive issues, want to move that as well.
Yeah, we want to move those items as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay? Then I think we can call the roll. Or do you- additional questions, comments?
So with this, are we adopting the ordinance?
We are codifying the ordinance, and we're adding in this labor protection.
Kathy
Or
Phelan,
I'll let you guys.
That's correct. The ordinance, the proposed ordinance is before you, along with an updated ordinance from the August 18th memo, which reflects the latest code provisions that exist and reflective of the most recently issued executive directive. It also includes a September 25th memo that we just sent last week that had some additional clarifications. So it's that, along with the labor provisions that were just explained.
Mr. Chair, those instructions that planning read, they're included in the script.
Okay.
So if you, I'm not sure if your preference is for.
You can go ahead and read them.
Okay, so Ms. Choi will read those.
The recommendations are as follows.
Wait, I can't hear you.
Could you hear me now?
Now.
Okay, great.
All right, but before you read it, Mr. Nazarian, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I do. Can we hold this for a quick sec? It's not exactly on what we're discussing now, but I had a couple of questions in advance of this, so I wanted to just make sure I hear from you. Do you know how many ED1 projects have been applied for that are current RSO properties? And I'm asking this because it seems like we're running into this sensitive spot where we're trying to offset, it's not just my district, I'm seeing that it's happening in other districts as well. While we want to build more units, we're also evicting tenants that are in precarious or vulnerable circumstances. So be curious to know citywide what that number is.
Yeah, Councilmember, I'll defer to my colleague, Kevin Keller.
Yeah, sure. Kevin Keller, City Planning, a little bit of history on the case. When we were looking at ED1, we did see that there was a very high return for new units versus units that were demolished. However, there was a number of, kind of like you said, high-profile cases that involved demolishing existing RSO units. So I believe, and our staff can confirm, that the proposed ordinance includes one of our first thresholds, where we have a threshold, I believe, of 12 units, which is a new procedure that's not in any other provision we have, that mirrors where ED1 is as well. So projects that are of a certain scale that are RSO are not eligible for this program. Okay. We can, if there's specific projects, we can look at those. That provision was put in place in ED1 in 2024. So there are some older projects that predated that provision that may still be an issue, but that was the intention here, to respond and try to create that balance where you're not going to be seeing large RSO units redeveloped into affordable housing, but still displacing people. And of course, we're working with the housing department on the actual process and residential protections that are in place citywide.
So if 12 units is the threshold, a situation that I have in my district is 6 units. And at least 2 of the tenants, 2 of the 6, if I'm not mistaken, it may even be 4, are still there. 3 units. If this situation persists, do we help folks at least get settled in to another comparable
good question.
Unit before evicting? I'm struggling trying to help these residents because they've exhausted every which avenue possible. And I again, appreciate wanting to take full advantage and build more units, but in the interim, there is a devastation to those that have been dependent and have been living in a place for 20, potentially 25, 30 years, if not more.
Really, really important issue. I think maybe I'll hand it back to our team, but I just want to highlight that ED1 relies on existing programs to actually do the redevelopment. What ED1 does, it streamlines that existing process. So we're balancing the additional restrictions on ED1 with the fact that an applicant can select one of the standard state projects that do not have any thresholds at all on relocation or demolitions of RSO units. That being said, I believe our staff can talk about the right of return and other kind of tenant protections that are built into ED1.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is perhaps relevant to also note that the city recently passed a resident protection ordinance that was sort of built into early ED1 project, but now is codified law. Any demolition, any displacement that is a result of a development project such as ED1 sort of qualifies the tenant for enhanced relocation assistance as well as the right to return in that new building. That relocation assistance has now been increased to sizably to nearly $80,000 to $100,000 to help the dislocated low-income tenant find a suitable replacement unit. They could also, there's also a process where they could, the developer could work with them to find a comparable unit that they agree to move in the interim in lieu of that as well. So again, the relocation assistance payment significantly increased, and the ability to either find a comparable unit or come back into that new building at an affordable rate. The same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. But certainly an important issue, and one where we're trying to obviously balance the huge net gain in affordable units with the impact on the tenants.
I appreciate the attempt at the answers, but still going back to my original question, how many RSO buildings in question up until now have been utilized in such a way?
I think if that's something we can report back on, we did pull that information. We probably have that information as of last year. We can update that information and share the number of RSO properties as well as the units in total. We do work with LHD to pull that information as they oversee the RSO program. And we can provide that. If there's a specific property, we can get that quicker, but we can provide that system-wide.
Okay. And then another question just on this theme as well. You know, because there's no public hearings or noticing requirements, occupants only find out about when they're getting evicted upon being served. So we should be requiring that the city or LAHD proactively do outreach to parcels that have occupied RSO units if an ED1 project has been applied for. So has there been any conversation about this or anything that, I'm sure this isn't the first time that you're hearing this voiced out. So what attempt has been made to address this issue?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. In terms of notification of tenants, that could occur when they're served a notice, like you said, but there are additional, again, with that resident protection ordinance, and again, I think some of these were built into the early versions of ED1. There's whenever the development proposal is put forward, we receive it. Housing Department is notified. Housing Department does immediately send out a notification to all the tenants based on the addresses provided, makes multiple attempts to reach those tenants to really let them know that, yes, the project's happening, but more importantly, to let them know that they have rights. And that the developer has to follow through with those rights, and if they don't, the tenant has options to exercise those rights. So there should be notification anytime one of these projects goes forward.
We were told that none of the residents received notification. So
Yeah.
just,
we could look.
just
We could look. We'd be
letting
happy to
you
look
know.
into a specific. It may have been that predated some of these rules.
And
It-
Mr.
it-
Zinn,
Got it,
if-
thank you.
If you want to do an instruction to get a report back on that or to urge that to happen, I certainly would welcome that.
I appreciate you saying that. I would like to, actually.
Figured.
I think the more notification, the better, so that everyone has a timeline schedule. In fact, I'd love to see how we can help maybe make sure that individuals who are being impacted are able to have a place reserved for them in existing units so that they can potentially move in, so that they're not displaced into a living environment where now might be putting them out of range of what they were accustomed to paying, especially if they're on fixed income.
So to add an instruction to this, that displacement prevention report, essentially of what is happening right now to prevent that, and instructing them to do everything that they can to give us the steps necessary to avoid this at all in most circumstances.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't frame that very well. You want to reframe it in a better way?
Yeah, this is Kevin Keller. I think we absolutely understand. We can also highlight there are a number of kind of best practices, higher than ever protections in ED1 that we can highlight, but also respond and use that information to be clear in the future on notification. I think that's a great feedback. Happy to bring that report back.
Thank you. And then just last question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. I'm just curious to know how SB 79 will impact or affect ED1 moving forward, or moving forward with codifying this.
Yeah, thank you. So Senate Bill 79, if signed by the governor, creates new significant, basically zoning overrides to allow transit-oriented development in areas that may not be zoned for multifamily, including single-family zones. We've looked at it. The bill's changed a lot. There's a lot of carve-outs for some areas that, for example, have a lot of multifamily. We may be able to be maybe exempt. So we think the biggest impacts of SB 79 is going to be in single-family zones. Single-family zones are not eligible for ED1. So in some ways, there's sort of two different. There will be some pieces of land where now a developer will have an option to build an SB 79 market rate mixed income project, whereas maybe the better option was ED1 before. It's hard to say, but I think largely they're sort of almost in separate focuses,
Okay.
so there won't be a whole lot of overlap.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, colleagues, any additional comments? So I just also want to emphasize that what we're doing today is we're asking for the drafting of the final ordinance. We're not actually voting on the final ordinance. We make this instruction, and then that final ordinance will come back to us. And I'll go ahead and read the instructions a little bit more formally, which is that we're going to find in the independent judgment of the decision maker in consideration of the whole of the record, including the housing element environmental impact report, EIR number 2020-6762, EIR State Clearinghouse number 202101030, certified on November 29, 2021, and an addendum number 1 adopted on June 14, 2022, and addendum number 2 adopted on December 10, 2024, that the proposed ordinance was analyzed in the EIR and no subsequent or supplemental EIR is required pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15162 and 15164 to adopt the proposed ordinance. 2 is to request the city attorney to prepare and present a draft affordable housing streamlining ordinance for the city council consideration and adoption as recommended by the City Planning Commission on November 28, 2023, and is modified by the Planning Department reports as modified specifically to require a PLA, to add a PLA requirement for buildings over 85 feet, and prepare 1A amendments in the draft ordinance to incorporate the amendments proposed and modified to Chapter 1 to Chapter 1A in the format and style of the new zoning code, and adopt the findings attached to the CPC letter of determination dated November 28, 2023. Receive and file the Planning Department report dated March 13, 2025, inasmuch as it is superseded by subsequent planning department reports dated August 18, 2025, and September 2025, September 25th, 2025. Is that everything we need to say?
In addition, Chair, I just clarify for recommendation number 2, the labor standard that you mentioned is option 4, as presented in the planning department's August 18, 2025 report.
Not exactly.
Modified to,
modified. Go ahead.
modified to exclude the unit count. And in addition, just to clarify, the committee is also requesting the city attorney to include the modifications in the planning department reports dated August 18th, 2025 and September 25, 2025.
Okay.
So in addition, we need to adopt Mr. Nasserian's motion as to the RSO notification early in the process. I think he read that into the record. And there was another instruction. What was the other?
It's instructing the planning department to report back on displacement with a displacement impact report and to provide notification to RSO tenants as soon as possible in the process.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So
I think that covers everything. Go ahead.
Thank you. I might ask for one more clarification for the record. On the 85 feet, there's a zoning code measurement of height and a building code measurement of height. They're actually different. We might just request that the council clarify that the intent is to align with the state laws, which we understand is the state building code measurement and not the local zoning measurement. We want to be in alignment with state law, we understand. Is that correct?
Yes. That's bizarre to me that there's 2 measurements of 85 feet. But stranger things have happened. But yes, the idea is we're trying to align with the state so that things are clear. Okay. I think we can call the roll. Is there anything else before we call the roll, colleagues?
Just want to clarify, the labor component is 85?
85 feet
Triggers
triggers the PLA, the PLA requirement.
Okay.
Clarify, buildings over the height of 85 is what is specified in state law.
Yes, the state law definition of 85, over 85, whatever yardstick they're using, regardless of the units. Okay. Okay, let's call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutton. Aye. Nazarian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Rahman absent. 4 ayes, and this item is approved as amended.
Great, thank you very much. All right, next we'll move to item 3. Planning Department report, recommendations regarding the Olympic, Paralympic zoning exemptions. So we'll have planning do a report. We'll see if any members of the public are here to make comment, and then we'll move to discussion. Go ahead.
Good
Floor is yours.
afternoon. I'm Ken Bernstein, Principal City Planner for Los Angeles City Planning, and we appreciate the opportunity to present this afternoon on our department's report back regarding the proposed Olympic and Paralympic zoning exemption. I'm joined today by our Senior City Planner, Maritza Preskop, who's helping to lead our interdepartmental work on the Olympics, Paralympics, Principal City Planner Hagu Solomon Carey, who leads our Code Studies team developing the ordinance, our Code Studies City Planner Diego Hanacua Cortez, and Celeste Wynn from the Department of Building and Safety. Earlier this year, the council adopted a motion introduced by Park Nazarian to expedite the development of projects supporting the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. The council instructions were amended here in Plum Committee with further amendments to the instructions when this went before the City Council. As directed by the council, we have been developing these recommendations in close coordination with the city attorney, LADBS, Rec and Parks, CAO, CLA, Mayor's Office of Major Events, and other city departments. We've also coordinated closely with LA28, the organizing committee for the games. The council had directed our department to prepare this report back along with a draft ordinance and provided several specific instructions for the content of the report. Overall, the approach that we've taken in our recommendations has been to address the council's intention to expedite projects truly necessary for the staging of the games by creating an exemption from planning and zoning procedural requirements, and also to strike a balance by avoiding opening up this exemption to projects not essential for the staging of the games, and by proposing processes that create appropriate oversight, accountability, and public transparency. We want to quickly take you through some of the background of a few of the key recommendations in our report. On the screen now are the City of Los Angeles Olympic and Paralympic venues. There are 36 Olympic and 23 Paralympic sports across more than 40 competition venues. There are 15 competition venues within the City of Los Angeles, counting the Athletes Village at UCLA. These are venues that have been confirmed by LA28 as the organizing committee and adopted by council through the venue plan. We did want to note that some of these venues continue to evolve, even in recent days. It appears more likely, for example, Grand Park may not be a venue as road races are relocating to the Venice Boardwalk, and the diving competition that had been planned for the 1932 pool at Exposition Park may now be apparently moving to the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center in Pasadena, though LA28 is still planning to make improvements to the Expo Park pool and will likely use it as a practice facility for the game, so we are including it on this list. These are some images of some of our LA competition venues. It's important to note that these venues themselves are largely already constructed, but it is anticipated that there may be needs for new temporary construction at many of these venues to accommodate visitors as well as games operations. From our consultations with LA28 and other public agencies, it became clear that a complete and final list of all Olympic, Paralympic projects at both competition and non-competition sites is not available, that is still in evolution. It was therefore important to establish a definition of Olympic, Paralympic project that would guide our work on the ordinance. That definition is that the Olympic, Paralympic project is any supporting facilities, installations, uses and/or activities that serve athletes, officials, spectators, visitors and/or residents at approved competition venues or non-competition venues necessary to host Olympic and/or Paralympic events, and that including but not limited to a series of uses that were included in the original council motion. The universe of what might fall within that definition draws significantly from some of our lessons learned from the types of projects and public activations pursued at Paris 2024, such as this temporary outdoor arena space and spectator seating at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, temporary spectator seating, food concessions, and public restroom facilities. These are at competition venues, or at non-competition venues, the activation of so-called fan zones, which often have large screens for viewing of Olympic, Paralympic events, or cultural programming, bringing the Olympic, Paralympic experience into local communities, or international houses, sometimes called hospitality houses, such as this Team USA International House, the conversion of a historic landmark in Paris. These are examples of the types of facilities that could benefit from the proposed ordinance. We also want to include categories of projects that would be ineligible for a planning and zoning exemption. Several of these were identified specifically in the council motion and/or the amended council instructions. It's important to note these exclusions would not preclude these categories of projects, but they would need to go through standard planning and zoning review processes. And these include large-scale cable-guided transportation projects or aerial mobility projects, metro 28 by 28 light rail, off-site signage or private property outside of an approved sign district, demolition of housing or modifying housing projects with existing covenants, and demolition or alteration of a designated historic resource without proper planning clearances. So we were asked to define and make recommendations for the treatment of both temporary and permanent games-related projects. The recommendation is to create the most streamlined and fully ministerial pathway for for temporary projects, since that category of projects are meant to be reversed soon after the conclusion of the games. Applicants must apply prior to or during the 2028 games, and there are two ways for projects to be approved for streamlining as a temporary project. One is if the project is located within an approved competition venue, the exemption from planning and zoning requirements will be granted, and the project may proceed directly to a permit application with the Department of Building and Safety. If, however, the project is located outside of an approved competition venue, maybe it is one of those examples like a hospitality house, a command center, a broadcast center, it must be cleared as an Olympic-Paralympic project by the 3 city liaisons identified in the city's games agreement: the mayor's office through the Office of Major Events, OME, the city administrative officer, CAO, and chief legislative analyst. It's important to note that all of these 3 entities have significant responsibilities for the games, and by being identified as city liaisons in the games agreement are the most qualified entities to consider and sanction temporary games-related projects for qualification for the planning and zoning exemption. That's the temporary pathway, those 2 options. For permanent projects, because these will endure beyond the 2028 games or may provide legacy benefits to communities as well as potential longer-term impact in local neighborhoods, the recommendation is to create a public process requiring approval of elected decision makers in order for zoning relief to be granted for projects that extend beyond 2028. This will involve the introduction and approval of a council resolution, including a public hearing on the resolution, and council must make specified findings, including that the project is or was essential to the successful delivery of the games and that its exclusion would, or if it comes after the fact, would have jeopardized the successful execution of the games. Our report outlined a dozen recommendations that are meant to serve as the guideposts for the refinement of our proposed ordinance. We're happy to go through any of these with the committee, but just quickly wanted to highlight a few of the recommendations. First, just to emphasize to the committee members that this streamlining approach being recommended here would provide for a full planning and zoning exemption for those projects that are eligible and qualify. That temporary projects will require, if they're outside the approved competition venues, will require the clearance from the city liaisons. Permanent projects will require the council resolution process. And that temporary projects may pursue permanent relief through the resolution process. Finally, that the ordinance is proposed to sunset 6 months after the conclusion of the games, which would be February 2029. We've selected that threshold to align with the provisions of a newly approved California Environmental Quality Act CEQA exemption that the legislature approved just this month, signed by the governor. It creates a new CEQA exemption for temporary games-related projects and defines temporary facilities as those that will be completely removed within 6 months after the games. So our recommended actions are, as we bring this report to you with a conceptual ordinance to serve as a starting point for consideration, to affirm the recommendations in the report with any additional policy guidance or refinements that the committee would like to suggest, and secondly, to direct city planning in coordination with the city attorney and other relevant departments to refine the conceptual ordinance and prepare a proposed ordinance for public review, which will then be considered and approved through the city's legislative process, beginning with City Planning Commission before we then bring it back through the council committees and full council. That concludes our report. We're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Before we go to questions, just sit tight for a moment and see if there's any members of the public that are here to speak on this item. If there's anyone here to speak on this item, please come forward. Let the record reflect, nobody is coming forward, no speakers. Public comment on this item is closed. So we'll jump right into it. Thank you very much for this thorough report. I have a couple of amendments and some comments. First, while I understand the reasons why we might exclude off-site signage on private property, I also think that many temporary facilities such as viewing zones, hospitality houses, activation zones might be made feasible only if there are commercial sponsors, and some of those may be on private property. We're going to be competing in LA against neighboring cities for many of these temporary projects, and we don't want to put Los Angeles at any disadvantage. So I was going to just recommend we delete the exclusion for off-site signage on private property, but I know my colleague has a longer amendment that gets into that in even greater detail, which I will be supporting from Mr. Nazarian. I believe the approval process for temporary projects is sufficient to address the concerns about signage. Second, as written, the Planning Department report makes projects implementing the Measure HLA and by extension our mobility plan ineligible for streamlining. In fact, we may want to encourage those projects. So I recommend that we delete Measure HLA mobility improvements from the list of exclusions in recommendation 7 and instead make clear that projects that qualify for the exemptions are not exempt from a requirement to provide HLA improvements that would otherwise trigger. Because this ordinance would apply to projects on private or public property, and HLA is generally triggered by city projects in the public right-of-way, I don't actually expect that this would apply except in very unusual circumstances, which we would want to take a closer look at anyway. But if we have a goal of making the city car light for the games, we don't want to do anything that impedes the mobility improvements. And then third, I recommend that we modify the language to make clear that projects that are exempt from planning and zoning requirements under this ordinance are not exempt from special event permitting requirements pursuant to Municipal Code Section 4120. So those are my thoughts on this, but I very much appreciate the report and look forward to moving the report forward. So colleagues, Mr. Nazarian.
Can I add a fifth item as well? Thank you very much. I agree with everything, and thank you for basically condensing what my staff had already worked on. So appreciate your abbreviated version. I just want to also put an emphasis on making sure the city council to have the city planning commission to expeditiously schedule this ordinance for its review and vote, preferably in one of its October 2025 city planning commission meetings.
Great, definitely second that, so we move it forward. And then that would come back to us, presumably.
Hagu Solomon Carey for the record. I just wanted to note on that last point that an October date at City Planning Commission is likely infeasible given the code requirement for a 24-day publication notice and some of the work it will take us to appear before the Planning Commission, but we'll certainly move expeditiously and get it before them as soon as possible.
Use my microphone. Okay, colleagues, any additional comments or questions on this item? No? Okay, then I'm going to recommend that we move forward as, well, did you want to read into your amendment on the off-site? I had the abbreviated version, but I think you had a,
It was, yeah, the way you had it was fine.
okay, great. Yeah, no worries. So in that case, going to recommend that we adopt the recommendations in the Planning Department report dated September 24, 2025 with the following amendments. Amend recommendation 7 to delete the exclusion of 1, the Measure HLA mobility improvements, 2, the off-site signage on private property, 3, the special event permitting requirements pursuant to LAMC Section 4120. We amend recommendation to 7 to add exclusions for hotels as defined as in LAMC 200.41 as a permanent project. That's another issue I didn't raise, but that is basically making sure that some new hotel doesn't sneak in under this definition. So we are adding exclusions for hotels as defined to make sure that it's not a, probably couldn't be, but just to clear that out. And then 3, to add language to clarify that temporary or permanent projects that are exempted under the ordinance are not exempt from either 1, Measure HLA mobility improvements that would otherwise be triggered by the project, or 2, special event permitting requirements pursuant to LAMC Section 4120, and direct the Planning Department in coordination with the City Attorney and other relevant departments to refine the conceptual ordinance and prepare a proposed ordinance for consideration by the City Planning Commission and thereafter the City Council as amended by the committee. And if we could Call the roll.
One moment, Chair.
So, Mr. Blumenfield, I think there was a section that you skipped relative to event centers under recommendation 2. So that needs to be read into the record.
Which one?
Where it sa-
Oh, yeah, no, that was intentionally not read.
You excluded that.
Correct.
Okay, never mind. And then in addition,
That was,
sir-
that was worked out, and
Okay.
that's no longer an issue.
Got it. And then Mr. Nasserian's motion, in the directives therein, he has 3 moving clauses. I think he gave copies to the city clerk. Not sure if there's an appetite to read this in its entirety or not.
It's not about appetite, what's legally required.
Okay, so very good. So for the clerks,
If we're required to do it, then if our city attorney says
No.
to read it, then read it. If not, then we're okay.
no, but just want to make sure that the clerk has a copy of it.
No, I don't have a
Okay,
copy
so
of it.
let's ensure that the clerk has a copy of Mr. Nasserian's.
So if you could just, if you read it into the record, or if you provide me a copy, then that way I can include it into the report.
Okay, they're just going with my recommendations plus the CPC issue. So we're,
So strike Mr. Nasserian's, okay, it's moot then. Okay, very
Okay.
good. So never mind. It's what you read into the record, and
Okay.
that the clerk will call the roll.
okay?
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt. Nazarian. Lee.
Aye.
Rahman absent. That is 4 ayes, and this item is approved as amended.
Okay, we have one more item. Thank you very much, appreciate it. And we will transition now to item 4, which is a citywide ICO to prohibit RV parks as by right projects. And we'll begin with the planning department to present their report, and then we'll move to public comment, and then committee discussion.
Councilmember Blumenfield, for the record, planning staff does not have a report on this item.
Okay? Then we'll move to public comment and then to committee discussion. But thank you for being available for questions. Is there any members of the public that are here to speak to this item, item number 4? If so, come forward. Just feel free to line up, and if you want to sit down until the line cools down, you're welcome to do that as well. We will get through everybody. We can just come up in whichever order you wish, and you'll have 1 minute on the item. So welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Marquez, and I've been a resident of Mission Hills for over 13 years. This is about community members at risk for public health hazards from an RV park approved without notice. I support Councilwoman Rodriguez's motion for an interim control ordinance, and my concern about the Silverland RV Park in Mission Hills shows why this ICO is urgently needed. This project was approved under a public benefit, yet residents and schools were not notified. This lack of transparency undermines trust. It also poses serious risk, children's safety, fire danger, and public health concerns. RVs often rely on generators and propane, creating fumes that expose residents and worsen respiratory illnesses in children and seniors, while also creating fire hazards. Without strong oversight, sanitation can attract rodents and mosquitoes, spreading West Nile virus, typhus, and hantavirus. This is not about opposing families who need residents. So I'm respectfully requesting the committee to take the action it did in Harbor City, that it undergoes the plum review and meaningful community input. We deserve the same transparency and protection as every other neighborhood in LA.
Great.
And moving forward,
Thank you. Your time expired. I have to give everybody the same amount of time. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Thank you, Planning Committee.
And you all can feel free to have a seat. You don't have to stand in line. If you make yourself comfortable, go ahead.
My name is Andy. I'm a resident of North Hills, and I'm in favor of the interim control ordinance, but I'm against public benefit projects being granted approval without public comment. I believe that there should be conditions for these projects. These projects, such as the RV park, do not belong in residential neighborhoods. There was no notification, so there should be notification to the surrounding neighbors, and there should be public comment regarding these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Adriana. I am a resident of North Hills, and like many of my neighbors, I am in favor. I support the ICO because there are many safety concerns that need to be addressed. There's currently an RV park being built with no notice and no feedback from the community other than in support of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fernando Ramirez. I'm a resident of North Hills, 15 years, and I'm an Angelino, born and raised. I am here in support of the ICO because building RV parks on land designated for residential properties would worsen our current housing crisis by occupying land that would otherwise go towards permanent housing, which is what we need right now. We need permanent housing, not parking lots or campsites. These RV parks are not a benefit to the public, but a hindrance. And given the safety concerns, these RV parks are also a danger and a nuisance. Whatever loophole or error that permitted these RV parks needs to be closed or corrected immediately. I've spoken to all my neighbors, and they all feel the same way I do. Owners, renters, young, old, they all feel the same way I do. Thank you.
My name is Karen Martin. I live in CD7. It was with no small amount of horror that the neighborhoods of Mission Hills and North Hills suddenly became aware of a recreational vehicle campground appearing virtually overnight in the midst of their single-family residential neighborhood. Assuming that a large residential dwelling was being built, housing badly needed, with all the expected protections that the rules and regulations of a city's planning and building laws afforded citizenry, the initial construction at the site raised no eyebrows. When it became apparent that rather than badly needed housing, this large RV campground had been approved by the city as a public benefit, the public that this stealth project is decidedly not benefiting had many questions. Questions that the project manager had promised to answer via neighborhood council meetings, but to which he declined to attend or respond to in any fashion. The RV Sites Corporation website is already engaged in soliciting business for this camp, including a dog park, a mobile home option, and a no tenure requirement. As is customary at many RV parks, I support interim control order.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members. As a longtime property owner in the city of Los Angeles, I am in support of the interim control ordinance relative to recreational vehicle parks. An ICO lasting at most 2 years is not an unreasonably long period of time for the city to update, clarify, and make consistent existing regulations for the orderly, safe, and nuisance-free development and use of RV parks to protect the threat to the public safety, health, and welfare for those inside and outside of such an establishment. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi. Okay, I can go?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. It is urgent to support this ICO. Public hearings are a must. A 12-item performance standard checklist is not enough to safeguard those inside and outside a project like an RV park. I am sure that the intent of the public benefit project permit was well-meaning, but in application, it is obvious that the lack of consistent and clear codes, oversight, conditions of use, and public hearings before a permit is issued is a woeful loophole that must be closed. Many things must change before another permit of this kind is issued. Please support this ICO. Thank you.
Okay, are there any additional speakers? Okay, let the record reflect everyone who came to speak has given the opportunity, and we will now close public comment on this. So, this is a topic we've talked about before, and the need for having an ICO. So I'm going to recommend that we adopt the proposed RV Parks Interim Control Ordinance and findings as recommended in the Planning Department report dated September 23rd, 2025, and that we request the city attorney to prepare and present the draft ordinance. But are there any comments or questions on this item, colleagues? Okay. I mean, as I said, this is something we have discussed, and I think we all share this concern. And so let's call the roll on the item
Blumenfield.
as outlined.
Blumenfield.
Aye.
Hut. Aye. Nazarian. Nazarian? Nazarian is absent. Lee?
Aye.
Rahman absent. 3 ayes, and this item is approved.
Okay. And please confirm that that clears the desk.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and go Dodgers. And this meeting is adjourned.